Hello, I'm Jeremy, and today I wanted to go over Tim Pool's video that he made today. It's titled Democrats Exploiting Latest Tragedy to Push Anti-2A Legislation but Clearly Know Nothing About Arms. I can't imagine that they don't know anything. I think it's the same thing that happens more commonly, just like mad, and that is in order to win, in order to get elected, you have to go with what the people believe. So this is a problem that goes in with science whenever they're doing research. I've seen several kind of TED Talks and lectures about how, like there was this professor in New Zealand and he was talking about the way the corruption happens is that if you want to get funded for your university or research company that you've got, you get the majority of your funding from the government. And in order to get that funding, you have to produce research that aligns with what the politicians are saying. And if not, if it contradicts with that, then they're not going to do anything for you. And I think it's the same thing with this. That if you want to be voted on, politicians, they don't care about the truth. They care about getting votes. They care about getting elected or re-elected. So I just can't imagine that they just don't know anything. How many times do you think that they've seen debates or been in debates about this exact thing right here? It's like, isn't this what they live for? Isn't this their world, is debating all these issues? So I don't think I agree with that. So anyways, if you have been watching for a while, it would help me a lot if you would subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I also have Patreon and Subscribe Star. That'll help me out a lot. I've got bigger and better plans than what I'm doing right now. And so he's talking about how he doesn't want to talk about the shooter and mention him and give him any kind of glory. And I say that that's wrong. I think it should be the exact opposite. And he's not the only one who thinks this. Is kind of the mainstream kind of view on this, especially if you're kind of on the conservative side. And for me, I would say that the response should be, I want to know everything about them. I don't care about guns. It's not the guns that committed the crime. It was this person. And so, yeah, I want to know their name. I want to know where they lived. Apparently, this guy was a Muslim. It's like, well, I want to know all about that. I want to know everything. Because I want to know about all of these people, and I want to see what common characteristics that they all have, so then that way we can start addressing the issue. It's not like the gun just grew arms and legs and just started going around shooting. No, it's a person who had arms and legs, grabbed the gun, and went around and started shooting people. So this nonsense about, well, we need more legislation against guns. It's like, no, we need more legislation against people who are mentally incompetent of making good decisions. That's what we need. So, yeah, the whole thing is just ridiculous. So let's get into some of the specifics. So let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of information that I was able to pull up here. So on Wikipedia here, this has the estimated number of civilian guns per capita by country. And no surprise, it looks like the U.S. might be number one right here. For civilian held firearms per 100 population, and there are so many guns that there's more. So I guess you could give each person more than one gun. And 120.5, it's because it's like if one family has only two people, a father and a mother, and another kid, or another family has four, both the parents and the kids, well, then you have an average of, or three, and one family has two, then you have an average of 2.5. So that's how you get that 0.5 with this stuff. In case any of you were curious, especially if you're younger, you may not know. So, an estimate of firearms in civilian possession, 393 million people. That's more than we have the population. Our population is 328 million. China's population, FYI, at a billion. And so, yeah, are you going to try to tell me that there's some kind of problem with guns? What? Because there was one person somewhere with a gun? Here, let's do a little bit of math, too. This will be nice. So if you have... We're going to round this a little bit. 390 million people times 0.0001. That means that's not 1%. That's not even, what is that, 100th or 1,000th of percent? I don't keep track with that anymore. I haven't been in school for decades. Decimal points are pretty irrelevant. But anyways, no, what is it? That's 1, that's 10, that's 100, that's 1,000th of a percent. And so that means that you would have to have 39,000 people going out, killing people for it to be something. But it's not even that. Let's take a little closer look here. Let's do one more. Times 0.0. Let's get stupid. 3.9. That's what we're talking about. What is that? 10th, 100th, 1000th, 10,000th, 100,000th, million, 10 millionth, 100 millionth. Something along those lines. It's ridiculous. No, because how many shootings do we have? Some kind of mass shooting that goes on. It's ridiculous. So because of something along those lines, you want to create gun legislation that restricts everybody? What is it really going to do? It's going to mean that the government's going to get more money for nothing. It's playing off of people's feelings and emotions. Because who doesn't want to help? I want to help, but this doesn't help. This does nothing. This is like your intestines are hanging out and somebody comes up and puts a little Band-Aid on it. You know, maybe it'll have SpongeBob on you. Is that going to make you feel better if the Band-Aid has SpongeBob on it for you? It's like, shut up. So I want to know about this guy. I want to know about what made him happy or unhappy. I want to know what his education was like, what his family was like. Apparently this is a white guy, and he changed his name, and they found out that it was Allah something. And so they wanted to stop putting emphasis on the name and the person because they didn't want to show any kind of Muslim affiliation. And it's like, why not? Is there something that's there? It's like, yes, there are Muslims that they're good and others that are trash. Same thing with Christians. I mean, yes, Klans members, or it started off with Christianity. I don't know how many of them are today, but that was kind of like a big tie for them. And it's like, yeah, they're trash too. It's not just because you're a Christian or you're a Muslim that you're automatically good or you're automatically bad. Here's another example of this, is that you can go out and you can create a Star Wars movie. Just because you put Star Wars to it doesn't make it good. And so they do this in other countries where they don't recognize America's copyright laws. And there's actually quite a few of them. And they're trash. You know, Disney's done this. They bought up Lucas and they made all those horrible Star Wars movies. There's Rogue One was alright. I enjoyed that one. I think all the rest of them I haven't at all. It's ridiculous. I've enjoyed The Mandalorian. And if you're having a hard time with it, the guy who's doing them, he's making them like the classical westerns used to be, where they were all meant to be kind of a one-shot story in them all, and kind of helping them out. And there was, and also off of an old samurai show. It was really back in the day. It was black and white, and he was actually going around with a little baby for a little while. I mean, it was kind of a direct tie, and it's understandable. I mean, that's what the guy was into. So of course he's going to kind of modernize it, and I think he's done pretty well with it. So I want to know why this guy was doing this. So here we have the Pareto distribution, and what this shows is that you can apply this to And here it is, Jordan Peterson, talking about the Pareto Distribution and Prices Law, is that it's not poverty that makes people angry and upset. It's whenever your neighbor has a mansion and you're living in a shack. The greater the wealth distribution is between the two, that's whenever you have problems. And he makes the claim that it's from that the violence happens a lot from young men, and that they have a high interest in young women, and women are attracted to men who are able to take care of them, because whenever they get pregnant, it leaves them very vulnerable. I mean, obviously, having this big bulge and just everything hurts, and you're waking up and having morning sickness where you're vomiting. It's like, well, yeah, I would say that would be a pretty shock to your life. I know it would definitely throw me through a loop. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And so he's talking about how when I first started watching him, he wasn't for guns, and now that he's bought him, he is, and he's changed his mind. And it's like, well, I wonder what else he would change his mind on as he learned more of it. And he talks about how there's like a hashtag thing, and I don't know much about hashtags, but people are talking about banned AR-15s. And he's gotten a little wiser with this and saying that, well, what are you talking about? Are you talking about just AR-15s? Are you talking about semi-automatic weapons? Or are you talking about the 5.62 caliber bullet right there? Because it's like all of them don't mean anything. Because it's like if you get rid of the AR-15, it's like there's a lot of other sleek, black-looking rifles out there. There are plenty that are the traditional hunting rifle, where it looks like a traditional hunting rifle, where it's got the long wood grain to it, and it's like they fire 5.62 as well. I mean, it's all stupid nonsense. And so I'm glad he's finally kind of wised up to all of this and realized. But the answer is, what do we do with these people? From my understanding is that a lot of them are on some kind of prescription medication of some kind, and that kind of hurts the way that they think. So there's this older movie with M. Night Shyamalan. Let me look that up real quick. And so it's this movie right here. It's called The Happening, back in 2008. And the premise of the movie is, so spoiler alerts if you haven't seen one that's over a decade old. It's not bad. It's worth watching if you want something to watch. But that plants release this chemical into the air, and it makes people kind of commit suicide. And I've talked to people in the medical field, and they said, yes, there's actually a chemical in your brain that you produce that prevents you from doing self-harm. And so this is kind of a problem that people have. Some people, not many, but they actually have a low amount of this chemical, and so it makes them do self-harm. And so I wonder, what about these people? If they're taking these prescriptions, is it kind of hampering that in some way, or something akin to it? We're never going to know as long as we keep dancing around the subject. And as far as I'm concerned, every last one of these politicians who's talking about this nonsense, they're liars. All of them. I don't care which side that you're on. Every single person who opens up their mouth who says that we need more gun regulation, they're a liar. The question is, are they lying intentionally, or is it just because they don't know any better? The result is still that it's a lie. And with the politicians, I'm going to say with all of them, it's intentional. And if it's unintentional, then I would say that's a bad politician, because why shouldn't they know? Why shouldn't they know? And from my understanding that, we've passed all these things with stricter gun regulations and all this stuff, doesn't do anything. You know why? Because it doesn't do anything to the black market at all. Drugs are completely illegal. They're not supposed to be anywhere, but they're still here. So how's this going to change it? It's a load of crap is what it is. So if you like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, Patreon, subscribe star. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later. Bye.